This real side experience would begin as another future view, so-called, regarding humanity. Again, it must be stressed that everything assimilated that befalls an individual or an entire species are the created ideas that have been agreed to either by the individual or the species, or those created by other individuals or species and agreed with, the result being the same, that of these ideas being installed in the consciousness, individual or collective species-wise, the consciousness then effecting body vehicles which decode these ideas into the simulation experienced that reflects the nature of said ideas. In reality, in isness terms, everything is what it is now. Every idea agreed to is instantly its effects, and we can be shown any or all agreements in an individual or collective species consciousness, and how they translate as the corresponding simulated effects on the real side. In essence, then, there is no future, past, etc. Everything is here and now, consciousness effecting its design entirety. However, the design of human consciousness is that it has additionally installed within its construct time and space ideas. These effectively render the simulation that effects from the idea agreements in the human consciousness not instantly, as they are in reality, but rather stretched out across sequences of phases or stages to reach a culmination point, the effect. A design not dissimilar to a movie projector and screen, where although the entirety of the movie is already on the reel, the idea agreements that have effected their simulation through the apparatus, the projector and screen, akin to the consciousness, and effected from consciousness body vehicles, through which the ideas can be experienced as simulation. So awareness, locked into a human consciousness with this additional design, must sit through the movie, a movie which is already complete and on the reel, or already completely installed in the consciousness. And from a human personal self-perspective, the movie's end, the effect, is construed as being in the future. And so, as these agreements are installed in the human collective consciousness, the human race must as a species sit through the movie of its decided agreements, and much of that which has been installed as agreements are of a nature that suit the dark force controllers, as they manage the human consciousness design to effect simulation according to their dark ill-intended desires through the various idea installation into a consciousness delivery mechanisms, the technologies, entertainments, the deceptive marketed fronts which represent ideas other than they appear to be on the surface. Rattling around the human consciousness are numerous idea agreements that suit then the controllers, in that further control will be effected from them, and various methods and means of depopulation, and which of the agreements come to pass as human experience, depends on which movie the human race as a species sticks with, the agreement they hold to most stringently. For even though all agreements are completed as effects in actuality, from the consciousness processing of the human race's simulation perspective, if the agreement fluctuates, the movie reel changes, and another effect outcome then awaits the human species. And so, what we are shown on the real side are potentialities, generally the most prevalent agreement in the consciousness at the moment we are shown them, and so, as I am shown these, I will report on them as I receive them, but as I said, these are not then guarantees, just the current movie that the human race is choosing to sit through, as at any given moment another agreement overall can displace it. This future view, so-called, would be another alien invasion potentiality. I would be participating in the events as opposed to just observing them, although curiously would be in the form of the actor Patrick Stewart, who plays Jean-Luc Picard in Star Trek. Seems this form is one that features quite frequently in my real side experiences. Quite clearly, all participants in the future view scene as humans are locked into the movie they are about to experience through the agreements in the consciousness, as they were agreements that were of a collective species nature, and what can happen is that, as it is in reality, one isness, real awareness overall, through all consciousness and body forms, we can be afforded the view from the perspective of any single individualized consciousness as effected into the body form that the consciousness construct is experienced through, like sitting in a vast room of TV sets that represent the simulation of every individual consciousness affected, and we select the view, the individualized perspective we wish to see, and more so, as we can actually experience it as though we were the individual, and at the time of the experience. If the real awareness withdraws, that we don't realize we are experiencing the consciousness of another objectively, we will think that experience, that individual, is who we are, until the experience is complete. This makes for a more immersive and memorable experience, as everything then is more intense, more emotional, as we are not standing indifferent to it, and although then I was viewing through the perspective of a participant in the events that would follow, it was as though an additional overlap layer was applied, that of the form of a Patrick Stewart, to maybe again have the experience stick more so in the memory on awaking. And so, as I experienced what would be the simulation of another, I would be sitting at a table with another individual, a woman. We were drinking tea, general discussions about nothing in particular, and then, from a distance, we could see as though a great cloud of dust formulating and advancing toward our position, and we decided a retreat was wise at that moment. I would have a car parked nearby, and we both would bundle into it and attempt to outrun this rapidly approaching dust cloud. as we proceeded through the streets, as everyone else also were in a panic and driving or running from the mysterious cloud. The skies were suddenly filled with enormous spacecraft. So large were they that nothing of the sky could be discerned. They were very bulky, not especially aesthetically pleasing to the eye. Their predominant design and colour was of a metallic glowing green. They surely were not coming in peace, for as these ships settled in their sky-filling and obscuring positions, and this would be transpiring on a global scale, they began to beam what seemed to be green symbols of a kind onto the ground, the roads, whatever the surface may have been. These symbols caused the ground as though to liquefy and dissolve, become molten, and so most people were killed, submerged in what was not dissimilar to a surface of lava. This had the additional effect of producing great clouds of dust. The dust cloud we had seen from a distance, indicating that the situation occurring in our area now had been happening at that other location also, and now, as I said, this was a worldwide alien operation. We would, however, successfully navigate our car around and through the rapidly dissolving roads. The scene would fade, and during the interlude, as the view skipped a few scenes, we had joined a number of survivors who had secured themselves in a kind of large mall. The individual I was experiencing this through had a particular designed consciousness, where he had created a personal self, which possessed much by way of leadership qualities, and so it was that he would establish himself as the leader of this group of survivors, begin to organise and coordinate plans for their continued survival, etc. As I've often said, as everything is based on agreement that effects a simulation as shared by individuals or species, no species can invade another unless agreement is installed in the target species that this can be so. Evidently, the dark forces who wish for such invasions to take place, as it suits their agenda, particularly as it pertains to a depopulation, as was revealed in this view and experience, had successfully installed the agreement, the scene set for a potential alien invasion, and all it takes now is for a species to agree to the role as invaders, literally like accepting a role in a movie, but a role they can't assume unless it is made available through agreement. And so it was, an alien species had signed on the dotted line, had accepted their role as invaders, and were playing their part in what was in reality simulation the human species had decided to experience. As the individual I was experiencing this through, and the survivors he now led, were formulating their plans, so their location would become known to the alien invaders, it would seem, as they rather dispatched some of their number as though to investigate all human structures to determine where any survivors may be lurking. The alien body form, if it was indeed the main aliens, and not some kind of dispatched scout or minion version, for surely Why would the aliens physically disembark from their craft and be more vulnerable was rather curious to behold, as a number of them would enter the mall and attack the group. I would best describe them as having a slug-like body, lacking any appendages or limbs, but still relatively mobile, suggesting something beneath the body that allowed for motion, and extending from it would be what looked like a thick neck with a smallish oval head attached to it, but a head that seemed to lack any features besides an opening that seemed to be a mouth, not unlike that of a lamprey. If these were the actual aliens, or as I suggested, maybe some body type affiliated with them that served as scouts, as they were indeed very vulnerable, and as they attacked the survivors, they were killed with relative ease. Perhaps their purpose was simply to determine survivors, for they certainly were not of a design that could kill them, despite their inclination to attack on sight. And there the experience would end, although several days later would I be afforded another future view experience that pertained to the human race, another agreement potentiality. There was no further indication of what had transpired with the invasion I had just recounted, how it had continued to roll out, but it was as though the overall human experience had moved on a little, and here I would be directly participating again, viewing through the consciousness-affected simulation of another. Although, simultaneous to this, would I retain my real awareness connection, so very conscious of this being the experience of another, and so additionally would the input of real awareness impressions be available, and multiple views of what was occurring, as opposed to one view through the mechanics of a single participant, as was the case in the previous experience. My impressions revealed that the world had been devastated by the previous invading aliens, the human race vastly depopulated, but as though another alien element also was involved with the ongoing human overall experience, an equally as ill-intended alien factor, at least ill-intended as it pertains to humans. It's as though the invading and human decimating aliens had served their function and had withdrawn, and from what remained had the world been rebuilt, but in far more controlled circumstances, and under the direct management of this new alien group. Interestingly, as much of the planet had been liquefied via the previous invading aliens' technology, it's as though the aliens now replacing them had restructured the Earth with the technologies of their own, terraforming it, we might say. Much of the Earth was devoid of human structures and buildings. It had all been dissolved, reduced to liquid magma, as I said, and to be fair, these new aliens, an expression of the dark forces they may have been, and directly controlling humanity as they were, had terraformed the planet into one of a far more natural design. The vast majority of the planet Earth now was that comprising of nature, but nature that was in actuality alien to the planet Earth, as though plants and trees seeded, whose origins were from the planet, the human controlling aliens hailed from, wherever that may have been. And additionally, would the planet Earth be absent now of all its native animals? They had been liquefied in the initial invasion overwhelmingly, and replacing them, much as it was with the aliens, plants, and nature, would be animal forms indigenous to the same alien planet. Some were rather difficult to describe, others looked more similar to Earth animals. I remember there were ground-based, bird-like forms, a little like feathered raptor dinosaurs, though much larger than any bird that had previously inhabited the Earth. As large and curious as these various alien animals were, none of the species seemed hostile or indeed predatory. None were carnivorous, all surviving on the alien foliage and plants. So it was a planet Earth transformed into one that in fact wasn't environmentally destructive, interestingly enough. As all human civilization, everything that had been detrimentally environmentally impacting was now gone. But as I said, it was a depopulation and a controlling of what humans remained, who would be stationed in certain designated areas, designed that still bore resemblance to human structure and building design. The human survivors would be heavily controlled via medication of a kind that took the form of a kind of a vaccination that was administered through the eyes. I would, as I said, be experiencing this from the perspective of a human survivor participant, though maintaining my real awareness connection that my view could jump about and gather all the additional details, either visually or through impressions. These new controlling aliens had established certain human survivors as their enforcers and controlling military, rather than get their alien hands dirty, and these human military were those responsible for the drug administration. They would hold a small technological device to the eye of the target. A small needle would emerge and make contact with the retina of the eye, yet not penetrate it, and then it would as though make alterations to the very genetics of the human being administered. I'm uncertain exactly as to the mechanics. It may have included a nanobite component that entered via the eye, but overall this served as a means of control, reducing the surviving humans to docile, subservient drones, with no incentive for rebellion or insurrection. What purpose the surviving humans served wasn't made apparent, just that they were housed in the small areas of the Earth that were not thriving with alien nature and kept docile in this way, though it seemed it was necessary for the constant administration of the vaccines via the eye, or the humans would break free of their zombie-like acquiescent states. For the individual I was also experiencing this through would do just this: refuse the vaccine, manage to escape, and go on the run, as it were, vacate the human settlement area he was in, and attempt to survive in the alien nature and animal terraformed environment. How successful he was never revealed, or if he was recaptured at all, but as I said, None of the alien animals or plant life were predatory, so this heightened his chances. There was rather a dual aspect to the control of the human survivors. Some were being maintained docile through the genetic altering vaccines, but some were being transformed into robots, their body forms becoming completely mechanical inside and out, and controlled through their now assumed mechanical forms. It was as though the new alien overlords couldn't decide which was the best means to control the humans, and so were trying various options at that time. For it seemed neither were infallible methods, as exemplified by the human who was able to muster enough resilience to refuse the vaccine and successfully escape the human settlement zone. And also, I would witness one of the robotized humans manage to break the control the aliens had over him through his mechanical body. For it seems he had previously had a relationship with a woman prior to robotization, and when his path happened to cross hers again, she was one who hadn't been robotized. She was part of the vaccine group of humans. This seemed to break his programmed control, as he recognized the woman and would attempt to escape the human settlement also with her, killing several human military individuals on the way, escaping with her just as the other individual had done into the alien environment beyond. Of the alien overlords, I would be shown nothing of their body forms, only their craft. That, unlike the invading aliens, who had paved the way for this new Earth and situation, whose craft had been bulky and of a metallic glowing green, these new controlling aliens boasted far more sophisticated ships, glowing, metallic, and of a typical flying saucer design. The alien overlords seldom would walk the Earth's surface, despite it being predominantly recreated in the form of their home planet. Instead, they elected to remain in their craft, which hovered unmoving in the skies, as their human intermediary military managed and maintained the control of the humans that remained, despite a few issues, as was made apparent in the experience. And there the experience would end, as I said, a potentiality based on agreements in the human collective consciousness, but this was the most current future so-called view, and so this is the current movie the human species are choosing to participate in, but only if the agreement is maintained will it come to pass, or perhaps another will take its place. But overall, this is the theme of the human experience, that of control via the interjection of various alien elements and depopulation factors. So regardless of what actually transpires, the human race is in for quite a ride, it's fair to say.
Well, again, Kevin, amazing, and there's no lack of entertainment here for everybody, as we're seeing it in the movies and everything else. And so, yes, from the many experiences that you've shared, there's many possibilities that are taking place and moving towards whatever. So again, there's a lot of variables. They're giving you the idea here, and yeah, these are warnings because of the consciousness that people have. And just like when Paul created Eckankar, you know, as a benefit, and then it gradually, very quickly, actually became taken over by Reptilian Joni and a band of witches, etc. And it has just progressed. And so all these things on the earth, unless they're really seen for what they are, it will continue to progress. And so it looks like we have a version here of the slugs and the cats taking over the earth. So it's like whatever. But yeah, this is a big challenge for all of us. And again, getting through creation to meet it head on, this is where the individual becomes more aware when they have the focus and the real guidance. So, no, that's cool, Kevin. Thank you so much.
And so, sing the new you song. It is your connection to the true reality, the real universes of the all is, of which your real awareness, that which you actually are, is a part of. New